Welcome to the People and Performance Podcast, offering tips and expert insights into the strategic capabilities, behaviors, and results needed to grow and sustain employee performance.
In this episode, we consider some data-backed L&D strategies to boost employee performance. Our guest is Hassan Faruqi, Director of Learning and Development, North America for OSL Retail Services. Listen as we ask what performance looks like in the retail industry today, and how to successfully create L&D programs that can increase your bottom line. Enjoy this conversation Chris and Bill had with Hassan.
Hey Hassan, it's great to have you here with us today on the People and Performance Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Bill.
So let's get straight into it then. Your role over at OSL is pretty varied, and it includes developing training strategies, training plans, train the trainer courses, as well as designing sales and training tools, online training content, workbooks, leader guides, in-store training, certifications, and more. Give us an overview of an L&D professional's core competencies, if you don't mind, and what you see as the credentials needed to succeed in such a role.
Yeah, great question, Bill. And I'll really try to do my best to do justice to us. So from a L&D core competencies perspective, I think an L&D professional must be proficient, in your standard areas of learning competencies, partnering with clients, assessing performance needs, designing curricula, designing learning experiences, evaluating learning, facilitating learning, and really supporting the transfer of learning. Those are, I think, the core competencies any L&D professional needs to have. In addition to this, I also think what makes a very well-rounded L&D professional, that I believe, is that they must have great communication, have solid organizational awareness, understand what the organization is doing, be really good at researching, have exceptional organizational skills, and have a perpetual enthusiasm to learn and really be proficient with technology as it pertains to e-learning tech. So understanding how LMSs work, LXPs work, being able to use authoring software, the Microsoft suite of products, so on and so forth. I also, from the second part of your question, credentials, I definitely say it helps to have some level of formal education, whether it's college or university level, in any field. Human resources or psychology, I feel, fit really well for the job that's at hand in terms of learning and development. And outside of that, while I don't think it's totally required, designations such as CTDP, that the Institute for Performance and Learning offers, the CPTM, as well as a few others, I think they add value and certify that the individual has a strong level of understanding of the L&D role. But certainly it's not a deal breaker. It's not an absolute requirement to have these.
Excellent. That's a great overview. So thank you for that. So next question for you. What does high performance look like in the retail industry?
So again, really good question. I'll try to do justice to this as well. I think today's retail landscape has completely shifted. There's so many products out there. And for me, it all boils down to excellent customer experience, excellent customer service. And so reps and associates that are able to deliver that, to me, are the ones that are performing at their highest possible. Majority of the things that you buy in store today, including groceries, in fact, you can now purchase online or do, in-store pickup or curbside pickup. So the key differentiating factor for me that I really believe makes me want to go into a store and make a purchase is really being able to spend quality time with someone and really receiving that level of customer service and the willingness for someone to help me. And I think more now than ever, especially, as things have evolved over the last couple of years, I think it's become a lot more pertinent to have these skill sets and to ensure that the reps are performing and delivering on that customer experience for sure, to ensure customers continue to come back into retail stores.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's, as we look on from the HR side too, it's employee experience as well. So just making everybody feel good and in tune with where they're at and welcomed or belonging, as we heard in another podcast that we did a while ago. So now let me ask the question. So as you've gone through your experiences here, how has managing performance and professional learning changed in the last couple of years? And when I ask you this question, has it changed for you as a result of working from home for some of your people?
So let me answer the second part first. I think the work from home piece, definitely, I think there's more use of technology now than there's ever been before, to really close the learning gap, especially since face-to-face or instructor-led options have become more limited or more difficult to deliver on. The experience has become more challenging because it's not the same experience to deliver or facilitate content over Zoom or Connect or WebEx or whatever other platform people use today, companies use today, as it would be in a classroom setting or in a conference room or perhaps a meeting room that people would book. So things have definitely shifted, and I think it's a learning curve for both facilitators from an engagement perspective as well as the learners from a learning perspective. From a managing performance piece, yeah, you know what, I think it's become a bit more, definitely become a bit more challenging, especially if remote work is in play. I know, folks are now going back into work or going back into retail stores, so I think managing performance has shifted a little bit, and the traditional mindset of doing your semi-annuals or biannual semi-annual check-ins or annual performance reviews, I think those companies that are continuing to do that will struggle if they're not already struggling to, from an engagement perspective, and as you said, Chris, from a belonging perspective. I think, I can speak to our organization, we've migrated away from that and we've moved more towards regular quarterly check-ins and doing assessments and talent assessments and making sure we're constantly communicating with people. And that has changed the way the outlook, the way people perceive the organization, as well as how people perform in the organization, because they're getting consistent feedback, not a once or twice a year sit down with their leader, letting them know things that they should be improving on. So I think the performance management piece itself has changed, and it's become a lot more agile. We're doing away with the traditional ways of doing check-ins now.
I love the agile statement. Yeah, it's definitely there, and I think people demand it, and I think that's the coolest thing, that and as we morph into more of that, it's if an organization's ready to do it, I think you're going to see better success too. So
Yeah.
cool. Thanks.
So, Hassan, I'd love to hear from you now who you think needs to be involved in creating or maybe recreating an L&D strategy. I mean, in your case, you work closely with the COO, directors of operations, sales, finance, and HR, among other various internal and external partners over at OSL. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of different departments. To get your L&D strategy right, do you need all of those different voices? Can you streamline it? What's your take?
Yeah, so I think L&D is critical. Any organization that has an L&D unit, that team is very critical to the success of that organization. So I think from a learning perspective, a lot of this is driven. When you think about the retail space or even the non-retail space, the end consumer is the learner, right? Could be any level. It doesn't matter if they're at the field level or all the way up to the C-suite. People need to continuously learn. So as we talk about, it's probably a different question, but talk about learning organizations or organizations that want to become learning organizations. Everybody in the organization must be willing to expand their capacity and get better at things, and really become solid in their role, and obviously continue to build capacity within their role and beyond. I think it's important for the L&D folks to really have a strong seat at the table, be able to work with multiple stakeholders. So from a strategy point of view, outside of the members of the L&D team that are constantly tweaking and tinkering with the strategy, you definitely want to make sure you always have a sponsor for things. So that's where I start. I always start from connecting with my COO or CEO or a managing partner and saying, here's what we'd like to do, here's the direction we'd like to take. So make sure you have a sponsor, somebody backing you up, and then they can help you deliver the message as well. And then stakeholders from various disciplines, as you had suggested, operations, for us, human resources, loss prevention, finance, go to market, doesn't matter. Different stakeholders involved, including grassroots. I think it's important. A lot of organizations that do this well start at the or include the grassroots folks, people who are going to be delivering the experience, also include them as part of the stakeholder group to ensure that there is early buy-in and adoption of the change drivers the organization is looking to build. And L&D is all about driving the business forward and bringing about change through change leadership and change management. So it's important to have all of these folks at the table helping craft and curate the L&D strategy, in my opinion.
Hassan, thank you so much. Well, it comes to that point in our session here that it's time to wrap up, and we ask every one of our participants in our podcast series the following question. From a culture and people processes perspective, what does a high-performing company mean to you?
From a people and culture perspective, a high-performing company to me is one where people are constantly pushing new boundaries and where employees feel a sense of belonging. That term resonates quite a bit with me. A lot of companies are out there, really writing up their diversity and inclusion strategies, especially with the latest recent events that have happened over the last couple of years. But I think for diversity, it's physical attributes, inclusion is, being asked to dance. So the analogy that we usually give within our organization is, diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance. For me, belonging is wanting to dance, and there's a huge difference. You could be asked to dance, but wanting to dance is a very different feeling. So having that sense of belonging is very important. And I think from a culture and people process perspective, I think that is what creates a very strong, high-performing organization.
Okay, super. This interview's gone very quickly, Hassan. Before we do finish off for today, what's coming up for you? What's the big focus for the next 12 to 24 months when it comes to your role? And also, how can we learn more? How can folk connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the big focus for me, my team, our organization continues to be driving learning through technology. We really take advantage of technology. And while I say that, I'd like to add make the experience more human. I think with technology, people assume the technology will take over, it'll take care of things. And that's not an integrated strategy. So for us, a big focus is continuing to drive learning through technology, making the experience more human. And look, there's a lot of cool content out there, a lot of companies really investing in the L&D space. I'd say attending conferences help a lot, definitely adds value to what other organizations and learning from other organizations, what they're doing well, what they're not doing well, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. I think those are all great ways of learning more. And you can reach out to me via email. My email is hfarooqi@oslrs.com. More than welcome to reach out. I'd be happy to set up some time to chat with someone.
Awesome. Well, I've really enjoyed today's chats. Thank you so much. I'll leave the closing words here to my esteemed colleague, Mr. Buehling.
Well, thank you, Hassan. This has been excellent. I love your diversity of thought as we've gone through the different pieces on L&D and performance management, and the strong forecast of the future where we're going here, especially in the retail space. But I think it also applies to everybody else too, putting together an L&D process and program. So thank you very much for the time today. Look forward to learning more about you as we continue on, and appreciate your time.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Bill, for having me on your podcast today.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the People and Performance Podcast. Follow us on social media, and remember to subscribe.